Graham Parsons, of course, was a founding. He was in the. He snuck into the Birds.
Neon trembles above the wrought-iron gate at Mount Olivet Cemetery as though it knows we are about to disturb whatever peace is left inside. Gravel crunches like brittle wishes under our boots, and somewhere beyond the cedars, an owl refuses to hoot. Perhaps even ghosts hate being interrupted. Yet here we stand, flashlights aimed at weather-scarred angels, ready to learn why 6 feet of soil can't bury gossip. Country music was born in heartbreak, in jukebox confessions served with well liquor and whispered promises, and its legends know that melody alone never kills rumor. Somewhere between folklore and forensic files, their stories keep shifting like chords searching for the right resolve. Think of tonight as a graveyard encore. One more show for the restless, staged under a crescent moon that looks suspiciously like a broken record. We will cross decades and counties, pausing at 10 headstones that flat out refuse to stay where polite society filed them. Pack an extra flashlight battery. Nostalgia is heavy, and souvenirs have a habit of following anyone brave enough to watch the past rearrange itself. Hank Williams Sr. would have rolled his eyes at the irony. The man whose lonesome howl still seeps from every cracked diner speaker left this world on New Year's Day 1953, slumped in the back of a Cadillac colder than an Appalachian dawn. Authorities chalked it up to heart failure stirred with barbiturates and bourbon, but armchair detectives were not convinced. They spoke of rival managers, spoonfuls of cough syrup spiked beyond prescription, and a mystery injection administered at a roadside gas pump. 2 decades later, the rumors roared so loudly that officials unsealed the alabaster box, probing tissue for toxins no coroner had listed. Nothing definitive surfaced, yet the very act rewound every conspiracy like a brittle 78 suddenly spinning again. Radio hosts relive that procedure every January. Callers lean closer to the static, and somewhere Hank's gravel-rich tenor curls through the hiss daring anyone to name the real villain. Even the doctor who signed the certificate later admitted the pressure felt heavier than granite. A confession that only fanned the flames for collectors still hunting for a misplaced sample jar. That uneasy hush ushered in Keith Whitley, a velvet-voiced prodigy who promised through every backstage grin that he'd quit tomorrow. Tomorrow never showed up. On a humid morning in May 1989, he was found face down on the bedroom carpet, the alarm still buzzing like a metronome that refused to acknowledge silence. The first statement simplified the tragedy to acute alcohol shock, but studio gossips whispered about heart murmurs, prescription collisions, maybe even a dose poured by an overeager friend chasing the night's last chorus. Grieving relatives begged for an exhumation so independent doctors could cage truth inside a microscope. But the court called the request sensational. Undeterred fans opened petitions, tabloid freelancers staked out the cemetery fence line, and collectors talked about paying top dollar for a stray lock of hair. Redacted pages of the toxicology file leaked anyway. Every black bar incubated a new theory. True believers insist the uncut report still waits in a bank vault like an unreleased demo poised to rewrite the charts if somebody finds the key. Johnny Horton never enjoyed a calm graveside either, although his disturbance was pure geography. The Battle of New Orleans balladeer met fate head-on when a drunk driver blindsided his Cadillac outside Milano, Texas, in 1960. Hillcrest Cemetery felt safe until river floods began creeping closer each spring, turning iron vases into bobbers on brown water. Relatives and city engineers staged a nighttime relocation. No press, just plywood ramps, a rickety hearse, and prayer whispered between gear shifts. Neighbors later swore a phantom fiddle drifted through the darkness as workers unscrewed the water-swollen lid. By sunrise, Horton slept on higher ground, muddy tire tracks the only proof anything had moved. But GPS coordinates printed in guidebooks no longer matched, and conspiracy forums lit up with talk of a secret lab test tucked into the maneuver. Officials deny it, but freshly turned clay always invites suspicion in a county where stories spread quicker than kudzu. A sandbag wall now frames his second plot, a monument to the idea that even legends sometimes need a raft. If Horton floated, Graham Parsons practically evaporated. The cosmic cowboy spent a short lifetime stitching rock and twang like mismatched paisley patches and feared any sanitized funeral would iron out his rebel seams. Weeks before he OD'd on a cocktail of booze and unnamed powders in 1973, Parsons made a motel room pact with road manager Phil Kaufman. Whichever man died first would be cremated at Joshua Tree's Cap Rock while the desert turned lavender. When the hour came, Kaufman hijacked a borrowed hearse, forged paperwork, and intercepted the casket on an airport cargo ramp. He sped through the Mojave night, doused the coffin in gasoline, and struck a sparkler stolen from a roadside stand. Rangers followed the plume to a charred shell, but the fire had already scattered Parsons skyward. Fragments were shipped east and quietly reburied in New Orleans under a plain marker. Collectors claim dusty mason jars labeled GP exchange hands at record fairs, evidence that for some performers the final curtain is merely another lighting cue. Patsy Klein's soprano could fracture glass, but it couldn't halt real estate speculation. 2 decades after a 1963 crash carved a scar into Tennessee timber, her relatives floated a plan to move her into a marble hall crowned with motion-sensing spotlights, a chamber fit for the woman who made heartbreak sound like a sacrament. Letters flooded Shenandoah Memorial Park promising chains and padlocks if any bulldozer appeared. Local radio aired 24-hour plea lines. A preacher threatened to weld the gates shut. Under that glare, the family shelved the blueprint, yet rumor insists a climate-controlled vault still waits, polished and empty, just in case tomorrow's ticket sales outshout yesterday's devotion. When fresh roses bloom on that pristine slab, bloggers declare the move back on, and tour buses detour through Winchester to see which grave is breathing. For now, the twin plots stare at each other like rival stages, daring history to decide which curtain will rise last. Faron Young never met a spotlight he couldn't heckle, but construction crews have no patience for wisecracks. The honky-tonk Spitfire ended years of chronic pain with a single trigger pull in 1996, leaving behind a catalog that could flip from sneer to sigh in one breath. Months later, the city approved a sweeping cemetery renovation, new drainage, safer walkways, tour cart lanes wide enough for souvenir pilgrims. Unfortunately, the blueprints drew a neon arrow straight through Young's burial row. Rather than pour asphalt over a gold record, caretakers hoisted his casket under a quilt of fog and moved it before sunrise. A janitor swears, "Hello walls," crackled from a transistor radio perched on the hearse hood during the lift. By morning, the grave advertised in tourist maps had vanished, and rumor filled the vacancy. Hidden autopsy photos, lost jewelry, dirt sold by the thimble online. City Hall later admitted the overtime bill eclipsed the entire paving budget, a cost shrugged off as rearranging legends. The new headstone omits dates, listing only, "Live fast, love hard, die young, leave a beautiful memory." Dottie West grew up hawking newspapers on Tennessee street corners and never quite lost the habit of hustling hope. When a fiery wreck on the way to the Opry robbed her of tomorrows in 1991, relatives clashed over how to honor that grit. Promoters envisioned a glass-walled shrine off Music Row where tourists could tap buttons to hear her duets, while cousins argued Dottie despised anything that smelled like carnival barkers. Blueprints leaked, opinions split, and crowdfunding links sprouted faster than bluebonnets in April. Every year, as debate reignites, someone leaves a single theater ticket on her granite slab, no venue, just a date from 1964, the night she first stepped into the Opry circle. Pigeons perch on its edge as though waiting for curtain time, and the ticket ritual keeps echoing, a quiet encore no digital museum could replicate. Most projects fade, but the mystery ticket keeps reporters circling, proving sometimes the best show happens in silence. Long before sponsor patches crowded arena rafters, Jimmy Rogers sold yodels on depot platforms and carved the first trail toward stardom. When Meridian, Mississippi unveiled plans for a riverside park in his honor during the 1950s, civic leaders insisted the singing brakeman himself should anchor the project. They exhumed his 1933 coffin by lantern light, escorted by Shriner pals who once hopped freights with him, then reinterred it beneath a marble arch shaped like a signal tower. Newspapers called it the greatest encore without an audience, and a floodplain turned pilgrimage ground practically overnight. Festival vendors now hawk harmonica keychains molded like locomotives, but lately engineers worry the river is edging south again. Grant applications seek money for a second relocation, and rumor says a GPS tracker already rides beneath the coffin waiting for the next midnight journey. Old-timers swear a whistle echoes whenever the festival PA fires up, as though the brakeman still checks his timetable from underground. Lefty Frizell could wrap a syllable around your soul like barbed wire dipped in honey, yet his grave nearly vanished under crabgrass. By the new millennium, the plot looked abandoned. Maintenance budgets were thinner than a jukebox dime, and weeds climbed the lettering. Nieces pooled tribute show earnings with fan donations and paid for a relocation to a hilltop quadrant boasting perpetual care. The night before the move, admirers held a flashlight vigil singing "If You've Got the Money, I've Got the Time" to a patch of dirt waiting on its final bus ride. The new headstone features a bronze jukebox that lights up when you drop a token. City accountants groan at the electric bill, but locals argue Lefty deserves a resting place as bright as his phrasing. The coin slot sometimes jams whenever someone selects a pop track, and conspiracists say that Glitch is Lefty's ghost, editing the playlist, making sure nobody forgets whose melody owns the hill. Bob Wills, the crowned king of Western swing, took his entire entourage with him, even in death. After his 1975 farewell, Tulsa relatives announced the original plot sat on eroding soil and planned a covert move to Memorial Park, nearer family markers. Permits stacked up like sheet music. Gossip columnists camped outside the funeral home. Bootleg t-shirts marketed the event as a final Western swing. To dodge gawkers, directors scheduled the transfer for a Tuesday dawn, but the grapevine leaked everything. Truckers along Route 66 blared air horns in unison as the hearse slipped by, a steel ribbon salute audible for miles. Graveside witnesses swear a sudden gust ripped across the bluegrass, perfectly mimicking Wills's trademark shout, "Aha!" before a lone Stetson skittered into sunrise. Today, his new plot features a stage-shaped plinth where fans leave busted fiddles. Caretakers salvage usable wood for children's music programs, turning relics into lessons. Some say that gust was meteorology, others claim metaphysics, but anybody who ever two-stepped beneath neon knows certain rhythms ignore the grave. Step away from the headstones and you'll find an underground economy thriving in the half-shadows. Collectors exchange set lists purportedly stained with cemetery dew, fence gate bolts rumored to have touched Hank's hearse, even river pebbles lifted from under Johnny Horton's relocated slab. On late-night message boards, sellers post blurry photos of authentic coffin screws alongside sworn affidavits written in fountain pen ink. Some items are genuine, salvaged during renovations or rescued from trash piles. Others are as fake as a plastic rhinestone, but desire is the true currency, and it spends just fine. A Nashville pawnshop once displayed a mason jar of desert sand said to hold a sliver of Graham Parsons's char. It sold in under an hour despite a handwritten disclaimer that authenticity could not be guaranteed. At an estate auction, a cracked jukebox light bulb, allegedly darkened by Lefty Frizell's final show, fetched 10 times its estimate. The trade proves that for every security camera watching a grave, another 100 eyes are scanning garage sales, hoping the past might tumble out of a dusty shoebox and into their shopping cart. All those souvenirs would vanish if not for the quiet resistance of people like Julius Dusty Harper, a third-generation groundskeeper who patrols Mount Olivet with a battered thermos and a memory for every crack in the marble. Dusty has chased teenagers armed with shovels, photographers dressed as mourners, and one woman who tried to grind Patsy Klein's nameplate into a pendant. He keeps a Polaroid of each trespasser taped inside his locker, a rogues gallery framed by tobacco ads torn from vintage magazines. Ask him why he still works the night shift, and he'll say, because someone has to hear the music when the living go home. According to Dusty, the cemetery grows louder after midnight, as though air pockets in the soil release trapped applause. Sometimes, while trimming hedges near Keith Whitley's plot, he swears a faint chorus of "Don't close your eyes" drifts over the lawnmower engine. He never sings along. Respect, he says, is softer than silence. But he taps the beat on the handle, and for that moment the caretakers and the cared for share one set list. If you stitched all these restless graves onto a road map, you'd have a looped highway playlist perfect for insomniac pilgrims. Start at Hank's marble guitar in Montgomery, swing up to Winchester for the duel between Patsy's twin plots, then veer west toward Meridian where train whistles still answer Jimmy's name. From there it's a dusty sprint to Tulsa to leave a bootlace for Bob Wills, followed by a hill climb in Corsicana to feed Lefty's jukebox a fresh quarter. Finish the circuit under the neon cross atop Mount Olivet, and you will have driven 1,000 miles without ever escaping FM radio static. Roadside diners offer maps with dots shaped like quarter notes. Each laminated sheet sells for $9 plus a scribbled warning that any route is subject to change once the next reburial hits the news. Yet travelers keep coming, windows down, volume up, chasing harmonies that might hover above freshly poured cement. They wave flashlights across granite like stage lights, searching for an encore, half hoping a new rumor breaks before sunrise so they'll have another detour. Now the moon has climbed to zenith and the air tastes of red clay, juniper, and burnt guitar strings. Every legend we disturbed tonight carried melodies potent enough to keep bodies from staying still, proving fame is neither blessing nor curse, but an audience that never leaves. Graves can shift, coffins can crack, ashes can rain like confetti, yet none of it silences the riffs leaking from dashboards and dive bar booths. If you feel a chill when a classic track spins at 2 a.m., remember it might be a casket hinge instead of a cymbal you're hearing. Country's ghosts do more than haunt. They tour, they renegotiate their contracts with time, they headline midnight festivals in memory alone. When the last stage light fizzles, some janitor will sweep up the glitter, hum a verse, and wonder whether any star truly clocked out or merely slipped into a venue where the crowd never stops begging for one more song. Until that curtain drops, rivers will keep shifting, promoters will keep eyeing vacant plots like unsold arenas, and neon will keep buzzing above wrought-iron gates, reminding all late-night wanderers that eternity in Nashville is measured not in minutes but in reprises. Perhaps that is the secret bargain baked into every twang and yodel. Nothing beautiful ever sits still. A guitar is wood that once traveled in the wind. A voice is breath that refuses to stay caged. A legend is a body forever searching for the right address. Exhumations, relocations, midnight bonfires, each is just a station stop on a ride that began in front porch dusk and hasn't hit the terminus yet. Maybe the next chapter will involve holograms flickering beside real tombstones or drones beaming lullabies down to limestone. Or maybe it will be simpler, a grandson humming a forgotten B-side while planting marigolds, unaware he's reviving a chart position. Either way, the dirt will twitch and the neon will buzz and somebody somewhere will jot coordinates on a napkin, because in this corner of American lore, death is never the period. It's only the ampersand linking verse to chorus. So keep your batteries charged and your dashboard tuned, because the next late-night news flash might announce a vault cracked, a guitar string found, or a chorus breaking ground for an unexpected standing ovation underground.